Hello guys, Namaste, welcome to my channel, and I decided to do some more storytelling ASMR because I think people tend to enjoy that a lot. And I got with me this book by Connely. Actually, this is the Reader's Digest. It consists of different, I think, spooky story, which I hope that you people will enjoy. I know that I'm sorry for the background noise, but I know that some of you do not like to see my teeth. You find it distracting. So I'm going to read some story using my face, and for some other story, I'm going to point the camera towards the book, and hopefully you guys will find that to be more appetizing, I guess. So we'll see. Sorry about that. Let me just adjust it. Alright. Chapter 1: The Farm. Carver paced in the control room, watching over the front 40. The towers spread out before him in perfect neat rows. They hummed quietly and efficiently, and even with all he knew, Carver had to marvel at what technology had wrought. So much in so little space. Not a stream, but a swift and torrid river of data flowing by him each day. Growing in front of him in tall steel stalks, all he need do was reach in to look and to choose. He checked the overhead temperature gauge. All was perfect in the server room. He lowered his eyes to the screen on the workstation in front of him. His 3 engineers worked in concert on the current project. An attempted breach thwarted by Carver's skill and readiness. Now the reckoning. The would-be intruder could not penetrate the wall of the farmhouse, but he had left his fingerprints all over it. Carver smiled as he watched his men trace the IP address back to the source. Soon Carver would know who his opponent was, what firm he was with, and what he had been looking for. And Carver would take a retaliatory action that would leave the hapless contender destroyed. Carver showed no mercy. The man-trap alert burst from overhead. "Screens," Carver said. The 3 young men at the workstation typed commands that hid their work from the visitors. The control room door opened, and McKinney stepped in with a man in a suit. Carver had never seen him before. "This is our control room, and through the windows there you see what we call the front 40, McKinney said. "All of our collocation," wrong my story was. "I count them all the time. I resigned myself to handling this call as quickly and politely as possible." "Who is Zoe?" I asked. "Zoe, my son, Alonso. He ain't guilty or nothing." I knew that was what she was going to say. "They're never guilty. No one calls you up to say you got it right or the police got it and the charges, or their husband or their boyfriend is guilty of the charges." The only thing I didn't understand about the call was the name. I hadn't written about anybody named Alonso. "Ma'am, I don't think I wrote about Alonso." "Sure you did. You said he stuffed her in the trunk." Then it came together. The trunk murderer from last week. It was a 6-inch shot because nobody on the desk was all that interested. Juvenile drug dealer strangles one of his customers and puts her body in the trunk of her own car. It was a black and white crime, but still the desk didn't care because the victim was a drug user. I realized I didn't know the name Alonso because I had never been given it in the first place. The suspect was 16 years old, and the cops didn't give out names of arrested juveniles. I flipped through the stacks of newspapers on my desk until I found the Metro section from the Tuesday back. I opened it to page 4 and looked at the story. It wasn't long enough to carry a byline, but the desk had put my name as a tagline at the bottom. Otherwise, I wouldn't have got the call. Lucky me. Alonso is your son, I said, and he was arrested for the murder of Dennis Babbitt, correct? That's what we were talking about. That's right. And when are you going to write about the truth? You got it wrong. And now they say he's going to be an adult and he only 16. How come they can do that to a boy? What is Alonso's last name? Winslow. Alonso Winslow. And you're Mrs. Winslow. No, I am not, she said indignantly. You're going to put my name in paper now with a mess of lies? No, ma'am. I just want to know who I'm talking to, that's all. Wanda Sesams. I don't want my name in no paper. I want you to write the truth. You ruin his reputation, calling him a murderer. I almost laughed as I scanned the story I'd written. I said he was arrested for the murder, Miss Sesams. That is not a lie, that is accurate. He arrested, but he didn't do it. The boy wouldn't hurt a fly. Police said he had an arrest record going back to when he was 12 years old for selling drugs. Is that a lie too? He on the corners, yeah, but I don't mean he gon' kill nobody. They're pinning a rap on him, and he's just along for the ride. The police said that he confessed to killing the woman. That's a lie. He did no such thing. I didn't know if she was referring to the murder or the confession, but it didn't matter. I wanted to end this call and pass it and everything else off to Angela Cook. Let her deal with it. Okay, Mrs. Winslow, It's Sesams, I told you. See how you're getting things wrong? She had me there. I paused for a moment before speaking. I'm sorry, Mrs. Sesams. I will look into this, and if there is something I can write about, then I will call you. Best of luck. No, you won't. You won't call me. You didn't even ask me for my number. You don't care. You're just like the rest of them, and my boy going to prison for something he didn't do. She hung up on me. I sat motionless for a moment, thinking about what she had said about me. I leaned back in my chair and studied the contents of my cubicle. A desk, a computer, a phone, and 2 shelves stacked with files, notebooks, and newspaper. A red leather-bound dictionary so old and well-used that the Webster's had been worn off its spine. My mother had given it to me when I told her I wanted to be a writer. It was all I had left after 20 years in journalism. All I would take with me at the end of the 2 weeks was that dictionary. Hi, Jack. I turned from my reverie to look up at the lovely face of Angela Cook. I didn't know her, but I knew her. A fresh hire from a top-flight school. She was as green as can be, but she was probably being paid $500 a week less than me, and that made her a greater value to the company. Never mind the stories that would be missed because she had no sources. Never mind how many times she would be manipulated by the police brass. She was probably a short-timer anyway. She'd get a few years' experience and move on to TV, but Larry Bernard was right. She was a beauty with blonde hair, green eyes, and full lips. The cops were going to love seeing her around headquarters. Hi, Angela. Mr. Kramer said I should come over. I had got banked 15 minutes earlier, and already my replacement had come knocking. Tell you what, I said. It's Friday afternoon, Angela, and I just got laid off, so let's not start this now. Let's get together on Monday morning, okay? We can meet for coffee, and then I'll take you around Parker Center to meet you some people, okay? Yeah, sure, and, sorry, Thank you, Angela, but it's okay. I think it'll end up being the best thing for me anyway. I'll see you Monday morning, and I'll buy coffee. She smiled and left. I pulled my chair in close to my computer and opened a new document. I had to crank out a murder story before I could get out of the newsroom and go drown my sorrows in red wine. Only 3 other reporters showed up for my wake. Larry Bernard and 2 guys from the sports desk who might have gone to the shortstop regardless of my being here. The shortstop was on Sunset in Echo Park. That made it close to Dodger Stadium, so presumably it drew its name from the baseball position. It was also close to the Los Angeles Police Academy, and that made it a cop bar in its early years. But now, young professionals were moving into the neighborhood. The prices went up, and the cops found other watering hole. Still, I liked the place. It was early, so we had our pick of the stools at the bar. We took the 4 in the front of the TV. While we talked, I thought about the novel I was going to restart. I wanted to go home and start writing. I thought maybe it would help me get through the next 2 weeks. My cell phone rang, and I saw it was my ex-wife calling. I knew I had to get this one over with. I shoved off the bar stool and headed outside to the parking lot, where it would be quieter. It was 3 years ahead in Washington, but the number on the caller ID was a desk phone. Keisha, what are you still doing at work? I checked my watch. It was almost 7 here, almost 10 there. I'm chasing the post on a story, waiting for callbacks. The beauty and pain of working for a West Coast paper was that the last headline didn't come up well after the Washington Post and New York Times had gone to bed and uploaded their top stories onto their website. The LA Times always had a shot at matching their scoops. As the news reporter in the Washington Bureau, Keisha often get tagged with the chase. That stinks, I said. Not as bad as I heard what happened to you. I'm sorry. I nodded. Yeah, I got downsized, Keish. A silence opened up between us, and I tried to step on it. I'm going to pull out my novel and finish it, I said. I've got some savings. I think I can go at least a year. It's now or never. Yeah, Keisha said with faint enthusiasm. You can do it. I knew she had found the manuscript in one of my drawers when we were still together and had read it. Never admitting it, because if she did, she would have to tell me what she thought. You're going to be okay, Jack? Yeah, sure. I just have to figure out what. Jack, I'm sorry. I have one of my callbacks coming in. Go, I said quickly. I'll talk to you later. I clicked off the phone, thankful that some politician in Washington had saved me from further embarrassment of discussing my life with my ex-wife, whose career was ascending day by day. I went back into the bar and decided to get serious, ordering an Irish car bomb. I grew morose, watching the Dodgers start a game against the hated Giant and get shelled in the first inning. The 2 sports guys were the first to bail, and then by the 3rd inning, even Larry Bernard had drunk enough and been reminded enough of the dim future of the newspaper business. He slid off his stool and put his hand on my shoulder. There, but for the grace of God, go I, he said. What? I said. It could have been me. It could have been anybody. But they tagged you because you make the big bucks. You come in here 7 years ago, Mr. Bestseller and Larry King and all that. They overpaid to get you then. And that made you a target now. Whatever. I'm going to go now. He's staying. I'm going to have one more. He slapped me on the back and sauntered out of the bar. I sat alone and watched the game. For my next drink, I skipped the Guinness and Baileys and went straight to Jameson's over ice, with the whiskey burning my scalp from underneath. Another idea. See, it an imprint on my brain. Elbow on the bar top, I held the glass up. Death is my beat, I whispered to myself. I make my living from it. I forge my professional reputation on it. Words spoken before, but not as my own eulogy. I nodded to myself and knew just how I was going to go out. I had written at least 1,000 mother stories. I was going to write one more. A story that would stand as the tombstone on my career. A story that would make them remember me after I was gone. The weekend was a blur of alcohol, anger, and humiliation as I grappled with the new future that was no future. On Sunday morning, I opened the file that held my novel in progress and began reading. I soon saw what my ex-wife had seen long ago, what I should have seen long ago. It wasn't there, and I was kidding myself if I thought it was. The conclusion was that I would have to start from scratch, and the thought of that was debilitating. I ended up going back to the short stop that night and closing the place out early Sunday morning. It took me all the way into Monday morning to get cleaned up. I rolled in 45 minutes late to work and could still smell the alcohol coming out of my pore. Angela Cook was already sitting at my desk in a chair she had borrowed from one of the empty cubicles. "Sorry I'm late, Angela," I said. "It was kind of a lost weekend." She smiled demurely. "I got you some coffee, but it's probably cold by now," she said. "Thanks." I touched the cup, and it had indeed cooled. "Tell you what, let me go check in with the desk, and if nothing's happening, we can go get the refills and talk about how you're going to take over." I left there and walked toward the Metro desk. The city editor was a woman named Dorothy Fowler. Fowler had been a damn good governor reporter and was 8 months into commanding the crew of Cityside Reporter. I wished her well, but knew it was impossible for her to succeed, given all the cutbacks. Fowler had a little office in the line of glass, but she preferred to be an editor of the People. She was usually at a desk at the head of the formation of desks where all the aces, assistant city editors, sat. This was known as the raft because all the desks were pushed together as if in some sort of flotilla. All Cityside reporters, I'm sorry, I don't know why I keep bumping this. All Cityside reporters were assigned to an ace as the first level of management. My ace was Alan Prendergast, who handled all the cop and court reporters. As such, he had a later shift, usually coming in around noon, because news that came off the law enforcement beats most of the time developed late in the day. This meant my first check-in each day was usually with Dorothy Fowler. Dorothy had her eyes glued to the screen, and I had to say her name to get her attention. We hadn't talked since I had been pink-slipped, so she immediately looked up with a sympathetic frown. "Come inside, Jack," she said. She stood up and left the raft and headed to her office. She sat behind her desk, but I stayed standing because I knew this would be quick. "I just want to say we are really going to miss you, Jack." I nodded my thanks. "I'm sure Angela will pick up without a blip. She's good and she's hungry, but she doesn't have the experience you have. In 3 or 4 years, Angela will own that beat the way you own it now. But between now and then, how many stories will she miss?" I shrugged. These questions no longer mattered to me. "Well," she said, "I'm sorry. I've enjoyed working with you. I still have some time. Maybe I'll find something really good to go out on." She smiled brightly. "That would be great. Anything happened today that you know of?" "Nothing big," Dorothy said. "I'm going to take Angela around Parker Center and I'll see if we can come up with something." "Good." A few minutes later, Angela Cook and I refilled coffee cups and took a table in the cafeteria. It was on the first floor, in the space where the old presses had turned for decades before they started printing the paper off-site. The conversation with Angela was stiff. I had met her briefly 6 months earlier when she was a new hire, but since then I hadn't worked on a story with her. "Where'd you come from, Angela?" "Tampa. I went to the University of Florida. Good school. Journalism. I got my master's there, yeah. Have you done any cop shop reporting?" Before I went back for my master's, I worked 2 years in St. Pete. I spent a year on cops. I drank some coffee, and I needed it. St. Petersburg. What are you talking about there? A few dozen murders a year. If we were lucky. She smiled at the irony of it. A crime reporter always wants a good murder to write about. "Well," I said, "if we go below 400 here, we're having a good year. LA is the place to be if you want to work crime." "This is what I want. I want to write murder stories. I want to write books about this stuff." She sounded sincere. She sounded like me from long ago. "Good," I said. I'm going to take you over to Parker Center to meet some detectives. They'll help you, but only if they trust you. If they don't trust you, all you're going to get are press releases. How do I do that, Jack? Make them trust me. Be fair, be accurate. Trust is built on performance. If you're fair, they'll know it. If you screw one of them over, they'll all shut you out. There's one another thing. The good ones have a hidden ability. If you can get that into your stories, you'll win them over. So look for the telling details, the little moments of nobility. Okay, Jack, I will. Then you'll do all right. Let me just count how many pages I have left. Wait a minute. What chapter am I on? I thought I was on chapter 1. Oh my god, I don't know what happened. I'm sorry guys, I'm a little sick and I just jumbled up the chapters, but I hope that my soft spoken had helped you find some sleep by now. So I'm gonna